Hello and welcome to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neil Howard. So glad that you could join us today. We've all been to the hospital and seen and or heard bells, the whistles, the buzzers, the various alarms that let health practitioners know when there is a problem or let them know that there's no problem at all. Our guest in studio today is Connie Dills. She is a respiratory practice manager at the Hospital for Special Care in Connecticut, and she's here today to discuss these alarms and how important it is for our healthcare professionals not to become desensitized by false or non-actionable alarms. How are you doing today, Connie?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well. You are the hospital's respiratory practice manager. Now, could you tell us a little bit about what it is that the Hospital for Special Care is involved in?
Well, Hospital for Special Care is a 228-bed, it's classified as a long-term acute care hospital, LTAC, as many of you may have, heard that term before. But we have, we're nationally recognized for advanced care, for rehab patients, pulmonary, acquired brain injured patients, patients with spinal cord injuries, medically complex, neuromuscular disorders, cardiac disease, pediatrics to adults, everything in between.
So you're a full service facility, basically.
Pretty much, yes. I mean, our patients are much acuter than what most people grew to know as a long-term care facility. Patients are coming out of the acute care facilities much more quickly. Now they are much sicker, far more acute. So the care that we provide is pretty high level.
Now, 228 beds at your facility. That's a lot of patients, a lot of alarms. I was talking earlier about non-actionable hospital alarms, those, for lack of a better term, false alarms, or an alarm that doesn't need as much attention as maybe another type of alarm. Can't that get confusing and tiring and downright dangerous?
Well, it can be. And out of our 228 beds, we have about 100 of those beds, 100 of those patients are on mechanical ventilation. And so life support equipment, you're absolutely right. There are a tremendous number of alarms that go off, even with just the ventilator. That doesn't include IVs or feeding pumps or bed alarms, pulse oximeters, or all the other equipment that patients are connected to.
Now, talk a little bit about some of the downside of being at the hospital for special care and the alarms. They're doing what they're supposed to do, but, you're only one person with a couple of hands. What types of steps do you take in order to keep yourselves on track and keep yourself safe?
Right. Well, we, with our high volume of patients on mechanical ventilation, we do have quite a large respiratory staff here, staff of about 96 total respiratory therapists, and that manage all of these ventilators. And it is challenging, given the fact that the way some of the units are laid out, the patients aren't in the ICU type setting where you can see them all at once and kind of monitor them visually as well. So it's an extra layer of challenge there in trying to manage these ventilators when everyone's not in plain sight.
I'm familiar with triage. That's where you place a priority of one injury over another. Is it the same type of process when an alarm goes off? Maybe something is indicated at the nurse's station. Maybe if it's a real emergency, there are two lights. If it's not that big a deal, maybe there's one. I'm not sure how it works when alarms are heard.
What we have here at Hospital for Special Care is a system called Bernoulli, made by Cardiopulmonary Corporation, and it's an alarm monitoring system. And what it has allowed us to do is even though the device itself will alarm for every alarm condition that could possibly occur, what it allows us to do is to filter out some of those alarms that may be transient, may not require immediate action, and the practitioners are alerted via a different audible alarm, a visual monitored alarm, and they also receive a page on their pager. that tells them exactly which patient, what room, what the alarm condition is. And they know that that's a critical alarm that they need to respond to immediately.
Now, you mentioned that you had upwards of 90 practitioners there at the facility, all doing whatever it is that they need to do. And in addition to their normal duties and processes, they're monitoring and managing the alarms and the severity of those alarms. Is that staffing number based on what you started with, or is it a result of putting in this new system, this better system? Has it reduced your staffing down to 90, or is there some staffing reduction in that area yet to take place?
Well, we really, over the years, we have actualized a little bit of a decrease in, not significantly, in our staff. What it has done is actually allow for the respiratory therapists to provide the other aspects of their care a little bit more thoroughly, rather than, constantly answering alarms. We estimated that we've had probably about an 80% reduction in the number of alarms that they have to respond to. So therefore they're able to provide the other aspects of their respiratory care to the patients.
Now, as we wrap up, Connie, before this Bernoulli system was implemented at your facility, how did you handle non-actionable hospital alarms?
They did, have to stop what they were doing frequently to respond to these alarms, or call out to a coworker and have them, check on the patient and that sort of thing. I think by virtue of the fact that the volume of alarms that go off, I think that is a natural occurrence for people to be somewhat desensitized. But I think now with the Bernoulli system, they really are, tuned in. When they hear Bernoulli go off, they know immediately that they have to respond directly to the patient. If other event alarms go off that escalate, that aren't actionable initially, they will escalate and ultimately result in an actionable alarm that will prompt Bernoulli to alert them.
You've been listening to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neil Howard. We've been in studio today talking with Connie Dills, experienced registered respiratory therapist in all areas of clinical practice, management, and education as well. She is the respiratory practice manager at the Hospital for Special Care in Connecticut. And we've been here talking about non-actionable or false alarms. Not necessarily a false alarm, but just an alarm that doesn't require the attention that another alarm might require. Transcripts and audio of this program are available at healthprofessionalradio.com.au and also at hpr.fm, and you can subscribe to our podcast on iTunes.